Hello, hello, the internet. Let's talk today about comm security, communication security. How can we talk on the radios in a safe and secure way? All right. First, we have to identify what our threat is. And that's a big problem on the internet right now. Why some people tell you have to have a bunch of radios, and then some people say you're going to die if you use a radio. It's because we're all talking about different perceived threat levels and scenarios. Okay, so you could have a low-tech adversary, right? Somebody that's not using technology at all in the signals communication environment, right? Just like local meth heads or local gangbangers or something, right? They're not running any sort of signals intelligence. Then we could have a near-peer threat, right? Some other people that just have access to the internet and general commerce, so they could buy radios and Yagi antennas and other radio direction finding equipment and listen in on anything that we have, they have access to listen to. And then we have some sort of a government or professional entity or group that's able to bring to bear the best things available and possibly even things that we're not aware of available. Cool. So, and then beyond that, who it is we're fighting or who it is we're worried about listening to us, how much of their assets are deployed in our area of operation, right? So even if we are attempting to conceal our communication from a government entity, and maybe that government entity has the ability to listen to anything, right? Cool. But how much manpower and equipment power and asset and time and energy are they putting into listening to my communications? How much assets do they have deployed in this town that I live in or my county that I'm operating in, right? Just because the federal government or a government has the ability to do X, Y, or Z doesn't mean they can do X, Y, or Z everywhere, always, all the time, right? They're limited in resources just like everybody else. Logistics is always the final criteria. All right. So, now we're going to discuss some ways you can conceal your communication going in order of low tech to high tech, all right? So, first and foremost, let's think about what radios we have and who all has access to them, right? Okay, so I understand, again, if we're talking about a government, they can listen to everything. But now let's talk about a near peer threat. If I'm using an FRS or a GMRS radio, well, pretty much anybody and everybody has access to that. I mean, little kids have walkie-talkies that they bought on Amazon or Walmart or whatever. They come in toy packs that they can use to listen in on your communications. So everybody has access to FRS and GMRS. Ham radio, ham, MERS, CB, right? People have that. It's not like no one has it, but it's definitely not everybody, right? If you polled all of the people living in your general area, your neighborhood, your apartment complex, your county, whatever, a very low percentage of them likely would actually have and know how to be operating a ham radio, okay? So just stepping it up to that next level of radio is going to reduce the amount of near-peer threats that are going to be able to listen into your comms. Advancing again, right? If we move into some sort of a digital mode, most popular these days is DMR. Well, they are also going to have a DMR radio if you're using yours in DMR mode. How many people have DMR radios, right? It's not nobody, but it's definitely not a lot of people. And then the last step, if we want to encrypt, right? If we get an AES 256 encrypted radio, then we can encrypt that, and then it is protected from everybody other than government level high-end threats that are bringing to bear their best technologies on us directly. All right, another point I want to make is even if we, right, so if we're using a radio with AES 256, a DMR radio with AES 256 encryption, so a lot of people can't listen to us, they can't understand what we're saying, they'll still be able to pick up a signal. They'll be able to identify that somebody's talking on that frequency. And if they're using direction finding stuff, they'll be able to identify our direction. So there's, two separate things. Being able to hide what you're talking about is one thing, and then being direction found, even if you are hiding your comms, is another thing to worry about, right? Two separate things to worry about in the Comm Sec piece of the pie. All right, so we can use radios if there's a high threat of signals intelligence. We can use our radios only when in a gunfight. Okay, so if we're already shooting and running around, then it's not a secret we're here. Everybody knows. We're not being quiet. It doesn't matter. So if I need to, get on my radio and tell, hey, Team 2, shift up, or Team 3, lift your fires, and the enemy hears that, and they know where my signal came from, I'm not really giving them any information, not helping them out in any way. So once we're doing a big, huge gunfight, we can just kind of talk freely over the radio in that space during that time, and it doesn't really change anything. We also can use coded talk. So you can make this as advanced or as simplified as you want. When we're developing plans and stuff like that, combat operations, route plans, checkpoints, phase lines, objectives, typically we're going to give these a coded name anyways. Make the code names work for you, right? Could be beer names, could be whiskey names, could be names of all the local strip clubs, could be names of books of the Bible, could be whatever, right? You play a video game, you got a comic book, you have a favorite TV show, names of those characters. That way they're easy for you to understand and recall, and they just don't mean anything to the enemy, right? If I tell him I'm at checkpoint Bart Simpson, he doesn't know what that means. Not helping him at all. It doesn't matter if he hears me. Right, then we can, if you're talking about passing information in kind of a non-combat scenario, not, just sending information to other people and more administratively, right, we can develop code names, we can develop shorthands, we can speak in a foreign language, we can speak in a foreign language and use code names, right, which is like what the Navajo Wind Talkers did. They talked in their native tongue, but then they also were using coded language on top of that. Wonderful. All right. Kind of advancing to the next tier, we can use time windows. So if we are having to pass those more administrative style comms, we can talk at a specific time window, so that way we're not just sending radio traffic over the air willy-nilly, reducing the amount of total time we're able to be listened to or direction found. We can use different send and receive frequencies, right? So that way, if somebody's listening to us, they can only hear what we're sending or what we're receiving, not both. We can use data burst, right? So data burst helps both with direction finding and them being able to listen to you. It's unlikely, unless we're talking about a government level entity, that they're going to be able to pick up and de-encrypt your data burst and know what it is you're saying. And no matter who it is that's listening, if they're trying to pick up that signal or direction find us, we're just like doing a little quick bleep on the signal radar, and we can pass paragraphs and paragraphs of information. Okay, so data burst is awesome for keeping your signal, your communication security good. And then lastly, at this rung, we can do frequency hopping. Right, so we can set our radios up to hop frequencies and stuff like that, different program stuff we can do. And that makes it more difficult for people to listen in on us, because they might catch one frequency and then, 5 minutes later, we hop to a different one. And you can make that as simple or complex as you want, right? You can manually hop frequencies day to day or month to month, or you can set up programs on your radio to hop frequencies quickly throughout the day. All right, lastly, you can establish an entire complex, multi-layered communications protocol or plan, right? You can all be using digital or encrypted radios. You could be using coded language every time you communicate with each other. You could be communicating only at specific time windows. You can be doing frequency hopping and or having different send and receive frequencies, utilizing data burst whenever it's applicable. And then you can be swapping what frequencies and what encryption codes you're using ever so often, be that every day, every week, every month, right? So that way, if something is compromised, it's not compromised for forever, right? So you can swap frequencies throughout the day, right? Like Sunday, you can use freak 1. Monday, you can use freak 2. Tuesday, freak 3. So on and so forth, the 7 days of the week. Cycle through. That way it would take somebody a while to discover what all of your different frequencies are. And then every month, your comm guy can come along and change out all the encryption on all your radios. In case anybody picked up any encryption during that month, well, that's not going to work anymore. They'll have to re-crack it again. So that would be a pretty complex, labor-intensive comm plan, but it would also be pretty hard to understand what everybody was saying conducted within that communications plan. So just food for thought.